What about school? What was that like when you were in school, like in elementary school? Were you treated differently? Were you picked on because you're brown?
Yeah, interesting. No, I went to school for a lot of years in New York. So having been raised in New York for the first 10 to 12 years of my life, it's a melting pot there. So actually, I grew up around a lot of my family. Actually, most of my family lived on the same street in New York, and so I was very much around them. So there's Indian people around, African Americans, there's people that are Jewish, just everybody around. And so there was no, racial kind of things that were going on then. When I went to Georgia, it was a different story. It was very much a culture shock. People in the South say hi to you for no reason, and then I feel like I had a cop an attitude because I feel like they want something out of me. Because, being from New York, it's weird, you don't know what to do with that. But there was, times of staring and not really knowing what to make of me and things of that nature. So I had to kind of fall into it, and a lot of it is, some of it is cultural ignorance towards stuff like that. You're not really aware of it. People not understanding how I speak English the way I do, or even something like that, But you kind of find your own stride in things. But it was quite different, when I moved there, growing up. So.
And did you go to college?
Mm-hmm. Yes, I did. I actually graduated from Truman State University, which is a school in Kirksville, Missouri. So I went to it's a 4-year college, and I graduated with a degree in psychology and political science, actually.
Oh, good for you.
Yeah, thank you.
What are you doing now?
Now I'm actually a student at UMKC. I'm in the counseling psychology PhD program here.
Wow.
Through School of Education, and so it's a 5-6 year program. So I'm in my 2nd year right now.
Wow, good for you.
Thank you.
So I guess that covers the goals and dreams and aspirations and what you're going to be doing for the next.
What do you want to do with it?
What I want to do with it? Yes, I want to specialize in couples and family therapy. Actually, one of the reasons for that is that in New York City, I grew up in it's an area called Queensbridge. So I lived there for a number of years, which is a large house projects area in New York City. And so one of the things I saw there a lot was this common denominator of my friends getting involved in things they shouldn't have been because of broken families and things of that nature. And so I always felt like it would be important to help try to mend families and help them communicate better and just do better overall. And so I kind of developed a passion for it through there. And then, I've kind of carried that over. So I want to work primarily with lower income couples and families in counseling.
Very cool.
So, yeah.
What about your sisters? Did they go to college?
No, actually. My sisters, my youngest sister, I say my youngest sister, but she's younger than my oldest sister. She's actually an assistant for a vet, in New York City. And my other sister is a paralegal, actually. Like, she's doing, a legal secretary, I guess I should say. Yes, she's a legal secretary. So, so they actually didn't end up going to college. It's the children of, we call them the 7 siblings, which are the 7 siblings of my grandparents. Some went on to become nurses. A couple of them are nurses, so they went to college and everything. But as far as trying to attain this education level, there hasn't been anyone else that has tried to attain a PhD or something like that. So I'd be the first one to do that.
And your whole family?
Yeah.
Wow. Very cool.
Wow, yeah, that is pretty cool. Did your sisters marry? Who did they marry?
Yeah, so actually, my oldest sister, actually did start college, but she decided that college wasn't for her, and she actually wanted to be married. At the time, she didn't have a boyfriend, and so although very not stringent on Muslim traditions or Indian traditions for that matter in any way, my parents decided if she wanted to be married and have a family that they would set that up for her. So she actually had an arranged marriage.
Oh,
so I actually remember as a kid having men come in and out of the house to be interviewed by my parents.
Really?
Yeah, in like a formal interview process. To
did your parents pick the guy out?
My sister had a say in it too. So my parents would, she would be in the room too and help interview. And
so weird. How do you do that?
It was interesting. I was a kid and I was just sitting on the couch, kind of watching.
You were in the room too?
Yeah, I was kind of sitting there because they wanted me to, kind of be a part of it. I didn't really have any say. I just kind of, Everyone seemed cool because they would give me candy and stuff like that. But, you know, it was yeah, it was interesting though. My parents and her finally decided on a husband, and that's how she, you know, became married. She really wanted, you know, college wasn't for her, and she wanted to just have a family and be married, and so that's what she ended up doing. My other sister, you know, who lives in Toronto, she is not married. She's not a proponent of marriage in any way. She's very much avoidant of relationships altogether. So, yeah.
That's interesting.
Very different.
Mhm.
Well, as future educators, did you notice that teachers or even now professors maybe even treat you different because of your culture or the way that you look? Maybe going as far back as grade school.
Yeah, I've had isolated incidents of that, especially moving to Georgia. I think a lot of the time we want to fault teachers for certain racial things that might come up, with them not even knowing, you know, that it's a racially charged situation in any way. And it's all about educating our teachers on different cultures and everything. That's very important. And I think in Georgia at the time, they didn't do a great job of that. But there were some incidents of, you know, being accused of doing certain things I didn't do, and especially a person of minority that is in that situation with nothing but, you know, Caucasians around, then it almost seems like you're being isolated because of your skin tone. I mean, it just naturally comes out that way. So, you know, those incidents, when that would happen, I would bring it to my mother's attention. And my mom is a very in-your-face kind of mother, and so she would handle it how she needed to handle it by going to the schools and talking to... every school I've ever been in, they've known who my mom was. I'll say that. So, you know, that definitely has happened, but a lot of it has to do with not really understanding what that dynamic is, because, you know, I remember my parents... you know, even telling my teachers, hey, you know, feel free to hit him if he's doing anything wrong. You know, that kind of deal, like, you know, half joking, but really, you know, we're laying, you know, power over to you. You do what you need to do. Right. You know, to discipline him in any way. That's very much a different cultural kind of perspective.
That is a cultural thing that you rely on teachers to take care of your children while they're at under their care. Very much,
unless, you know, it seems like they're overstepping their bounds in some way, then, you know, the parents would have to get involved. But, you know, it was very much, you know, teachers not knowing what to do with that, you know, being weird about that and everything. But you could tell them tiptoeing around me in certain issues, trying to, you know, do a lot of things. I remember actually primarily one of the biggest interesting things about race that's ever happened to me in school was, you know, in elementary school we learned a lot of, whenever we did our Black History Months, we learned a lot about, you know, everybody in the Black History movement, so from Malcolm X to Martin Luther King to everybody. When I went to Georgia and we did our Black History, you know, sections, what happened was that there was an incident where we're learning about Martin Luther King, and it seemed like the entire Black History movement was talking about, you know, Rosa Parks and Martin Luther King. I raised my hand and I said, you know, can we talk about Malcolm X, because I think he did a lot of great things. And I was shot down, like, completely, like, right away, because I think if you know anything about Malcolm X, it's very controversial, a lot of his, you know, what he did and everything, and so it seemed almost like very cultural in that way that, you know, we're not going to talk about that aspect of it. You know, that's some of your heroes, I guess, that you grow up with are very different culturally than what maybe is respected in a lot of circles, I guess is a good way to say it. So,
wow.
Yeah.
I never thought about that.
Yeah, so it's, you know, everyone has a different perspective on things. And so I was made to kind of think that my perspective was flawed if I wanted to celebrate him in some way. If that makes sense.
That's disappointing to hear.
Yeah, you know, and I think, you know, a lot of it is not just being educated. You know, even as educators, you know, learning should never end, you know, or you ever think that you've learned enough, you know, just especially about different cultures if you're wherever you're working, you know, because you might get some Indian kid in the suburbs of Georgia, you know, someday, and you have to know how to, you know, kind of handle that. You know, it might be different.
Which is cool you bring that up, because that's what this class is that we're in. It's to teach, it's a multicultural diversity children, and that answers the, you know, the question really well. I mean, sums it up right there. You need to be able to teach to any culture, no matter where you're at in the country, because you never know when a little side you might roll up into Georgia.
It's totally true, and I'm, you know, that's why one of the reasons I even came to UMKC, and I'm thankful for UMKC, is this notion of understanding what multicultural awareness is and teaching, you know, about it, because it's extremely important, you know, for us to know. It has a lot of implications. So.
And you've already answered this question, but I'm gonna just ask it again, so maybe think of something else. But
Yeah.
do you think your education was hindered or accelerated because of your race, culture, or heritage, or did it not affect you at all? I don't know if you brought up the case about Malcolm X already.
Yeah, you know, that's interesting that you asked that. It's kind of twofold. There's two different kind of ways to look at that. Is that in terms of culture from my parents, it accelerated my education in the sense that my parents really pushed me. So education to my family, especially a lot of immigrants coming over, is that's why you come to America, and that's what you're here for. And so everything else, your social life, everything else is out the window. You focus on your school. And so in a lot of aspects, it can hinder maybe your socializing and things like that, but it definitely accelerates your education because you're focused on studying and you're in that mode.
I'm sure you're thankful for that now.
I definitely am thankful for that. There's times where it was a little too much, but it definitely I would be lying if I didn't attribute a lot of it where I am today to that cultural aspect that get everything in check and do what you need to do school wise. As far as the system itself, in terms of maybe skin tone or something like that, people always go into affirmative action. I don't know. It's something that I don't know if that hurt me at all or helped me in some way. I don't think it's something I would ever truly know.
You didn't feel singled out or anything?
No, I've never felt that way.
Yeah.
I've always kind of felt like if I was going into the situation, I like to think that I deserve it only on my merit and not anything else. But again, you never know. But I can definitely, the only thing I can say is that my parents, worked me hard, and I worked really hard to get where I am today, and so I can be content with that. So,
well, congratulations. I think you've done really well.
Thank you.
For sure.
I think we're done.
Yeah, I think that concludes the interview, man.
Cool.
I really appreciate you coming.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
I knew you would do it. I'm just
Yeah.
glad you decided to.